On a February morning, a 17-year-old boy would get on the school bus, but he would never come back home. But before we get started, welcome to True Crime with Maneater. If you love all things true crime, including missing person cases, cold cases, and just the strange happenings of the world, you've come to the right place. Be sure to subscribe and turn on alerts so you never miss a video upload. Let's get started. On the morning of February 10th, 1981, Roger Ellison was getting ready to go to school. At the time, Roger was a 17-year-old boy living in Colorado with his family. On that morning, he goes to the kitchen and he looks out the window. He said it looked like it might snow, which was good because he would be competing in an upcoming ski race in Aspen. Roger Ellison loved to ski. In fact, it was his favorite activity and he could not get enough of it. And his siblings also shared this passion as well. He had three brothers, Bill, Bob, and Roy, and a sister named Becky. Not only was Roger a great skier, but he was an excellent student. He was an honor student and had been accepted to college. He was planning to attend Western State College in the fall of 1981. He had recently paid his dormitory fee in preparation for the fall semester. His friends and his family would describe him as intelligent and shy, and although he was well liked because he was such a nice person, he was a bit of a loner because he loved to ski so much, and that's really all he talked about. But they would note that he loved to wear colorful ski sweaters. On that cold morning, on February 10th, 1981, Roger put on his coat, grabbed his books, put on his yellow backpack, said goodbye to his mom, and would go to the bus for his 6-mile journey to school. The boy he shared his locker with would note that Roger dropped his books off at around 8:30 a.m., but that was the last time that he saw him. Roger would tell his locker mate that he would catch up with him later in the day, but he had to run, so he basically just ran down the hallway, and that was the last time this person saw Roger. Shortly after 8:30 a.m. that day, Roger would vanish. He didn't attend any of his classes, and he wouldn't go home that night. Roger's parents, Ernest and Evelyn, would wait up all night for their son, hoping for his arrival, but he hadn't come home. So the next morning, they would call the police. Police, of course, said you need to wait 48 hours because most of the time kids come home. They run away, they go out, whatever, and they eventually come home. But the family stressed that he never ran away from home. He was not that type of kid. He didn't have any sort of emotional issues. He always did what he said he was going to do, and they needed to start searching for him. His mother would basically say, listen, if he was running away, he left behind absolutely everything. His clothing, his skis, his car, his motorcycle, and money in his bank account. If he were to run away, don't you think he'd need money? All he had with him that day is his book bag and $3 to purchase lunch. Eventually, police would start investigating Roger's disappearance. And pretty much from the beginning, they believed that somebody he knew had to have murdered him. The family would report that Roger had been acting strange the month prior to his disappearance. They said he appeared preoccupied and just not like his usual self. Evelyn would say, we drove down back roads, we combed the woods, we walked ditches. Gradually, it dawned on us that something terrible had happened to Roger and was happening to us. And in May of 1981, when Roger's class graduated, a fellow student would accept his diploma for him. This student would say she saw Roger's family sitting in their car overlooking the graduation ceremony. And that is just absolutely devastating to me. As I mentioned, the sheriff's office really didn't take this seriously. Roger was an avid skier. They said he could be skiing, he could have went away to a resort for the weekend, maybe he got a job and decided to stay there and hasn't contacted you yet. But eventually they would take it seriously and input the information into the system. The FBI couldn't actively get involved because there was no evidence that Roger had crossed state lines or even that he had been murdered. He was simply missing. Unfortunately, a few months after Roger's disappearance, his father would pass away, and the school bus driver for Roger would say that Ernest waited every day for his son's school bus after he disappeared. You basically watched the students exiting the bus, and he would kind of just hang his head down and cry because his son was never one of the students getting off the bus. But Evelyn did have a suspect in mind. In fact, she would tell authorities that they needed to check in on one of Roger's teachers, and this teacher's name was John Pash. John Pash was a psychology teacher and a wrestling coach, and apparently he lived right next door to the school. And according to Evelyn, when Roger needed to get out of class to go skiing, he had to turn his homework in at John Pash's house instead of at school. And that right there is the complete red flag. Why would Roger need to go to John's house to turn in his homework. That doesn't make sense, when he could simply do it at school the next day. Apparently, John Pash had told Evelyn, Roger's mother, that he had been counseling Roger. He said that your son has a lot of personal problems and he was suicidal. Of course, his loved ones definitely did not believe this. His coach even said that he was in great spirits before he disappeared and that he would have never taken his own life. The thing about this is John Pash admitted to seeing Roger as a patient. And if a patient's suicidal, don't you have to do something about it? Shouldn't you tell somebody? I feel like John admitting that he was seeing Roger in some capacity at his private residence is enough to start investigating him much deeper than police had been. Evelyn suspected that her son saw something he shouldn't have that involved John Pash, and because of this, it led to his murder. John Pash would resign from his position in 1984 and move to Northern California, where he still lives today. In 1994, a former classmate would put a tip in to police and say, I think Roger is buried at John Pash's former home. He sold it in 1984. You should really go and investigate. Authorities would search the home with ground-penetrating radar and saw some anomalies, including 2 under a concrete floor in the garage. But for some reason, they decided not to dig it up. When asked about John Pash, the sheriff would say, I don't have anything that ties him in with anything. I've always been concerned with him, Roger, having to go to Pash's to turn in homework so he could get off to go skiing. On February 8th, 1998, Roy Ellison spoke about the last time he saw his brother, Roger. The last time I saw him, he came to Golden. We were by ourselves and I tried to talk to him, but he sat on the couch with his head dropped down like he had 15,000 things on his mind. For the first 10 years, I had no idea what happened to him. By the time of our reunion, for the first time, I believed in my heart that he was dead. So I'm not sure what I believe happened to Roger. I feel like John Pash could be a suspect, but I would assume police would be able to track his movements that day if he was at work. I mean, he couldn't just bail out of school and never return. Somebody would notice. So I'm not sure if they looked into that or what the situation might be. Theoretically, he could have killed Roger at school and moved his body later. That would take some time to cover up. The last known person to see Roger was his locker mate, so I'm not sure how much they questioned him or what the story is with that, but theoretically, he could have something to do with it. Unlikely, but it could happen. I do feel that Roger knew his killer. I feel that he went willingly somewhere with this person because he trusted him. So I would love to know your thoughts on this case, so pop them in the comments below. But that's it for today, guys. If you like this video or any other video on my channel, be sure to subscribe and turn on alerts so you never miss video upload. If you have a case you would like me to cover, pop it in the comments below. I'll see you next time.